Hello, I'm Reggie York. This is an illustration of how to do a descriptive analysis of data. It's a very basic and simple illustration using an example. At the end of this presentation, you will be able to conceptualize how descriptive data is collected from a questionnaire, entered into SPSS for analysis, and reported by SPSS. SPSS is one of several types of software for the statistical analysis of data. You will be able to see how the descriptive analysis of data can be used for the description of a sample of persons, and how the results can highlight how well the variables can be employed in explanatory or evaluative research. This presentation will illustrate how to complete the descriptive analysis of data. The illustration comes from a survey of social work students in a research course given in a university located in the South. One that I used, I will use it as my illustration, and I will be using SPSS for that illustration. These are some things you need to know to be able to make good use of this presentation. You need to know what descriptive research is as compared to other kinds of research. In your analysis, when you're thinking about doing a descriptive analysis, you should be able to answer the following questions. How many variables are in your analysis, and at what level is each variable measured? A few other things you need to know. The meaning of terms such as frequency, proportion, mean, range, pie chart, bar chart. If you don't know the meaning of these, you will need to look them up before you continue this discussion. Let's illustrate this. 3 groups of students at a university located in the South were given a survey that measured a number of variables, such as, for example, are you over the age of 30? Yes or no? Did you spend the majority of your childhood years living in the South? Yes or no? That's how just 2 examples of how variables were measured. I'm going to illustrate how this would be put into the computer. Person number 1 was coded 0 for age and 1 for South. That is to say, 0 was indicated that you were in the lower category. Over here, 1 for South meant that you did spend most of your childhood years in the South. This illustrates too that categories, when you're using things like nominal variables like this, and you're putting people into categories, you typically will then give them a number code when you put the information into the database or the file for your analysis. Some of the key variables that were measured in this study I'm going to illustrate were stress, stressors, which are things that can cause you stress, support, to what extent do you feel supported by others, and health problems. Also, outlook on the research course that was beginning to be undertaken was also measured among some other things. Here is how stress was measured very briefly. It was measured by several questions on the questionnaire. One example, how often do you feel tense? Seldom or never, sometimes, frequently, very frequently. You'll notice this goes from low to high. So the higher the number that's coded for you, the more you have this feeling of being tense. When the score for stress was computed for the study, 5 items on the questionnaire measured stress, with each having a score from a possible low of 1 to a possible high of 4. Thus, the score for stress was computed by adding up the score for these 5 items. The total score for stress could be as low as 5 or as high as 25. Stressors, support, and health. The variables of stressors, support, and health problems were measured like stress. In other words, they're measured by several items that are summed. So the higher your score for stressors, the greater your stressors. The higher the score for support, the greater your support. The higher your score for health problems, the greater was your health problems, as you indicated. Course outlook was measured by 5 items like the following. It is my expectation that I will make a good grade in this course, or I believe I will learn meaningful things in this course. There were several items like that. The response to each was then added up for a score. You had categories, response categories were strongly agree, disagree. Strongly disagree, disagree, agree, agree, and strongly agree. The higher your number, the greater is your agreement. So scores could potentially range from 5 to 25, with higher scores meaning a more positive outlook. Here is a copy of the questionnaire. This was just an example. You can see one of the questions right here. Are you above the age of 30? Yes or no? And then there were a number of different items here. There were quite a few items on these questionnaire that measured a number of different things. Here's one, number 11, that measures something about stressors. Just a quick illustration of the questionnaire that was used to describing age and growing up in the South. Let's ask the question, how many variables are in each analysis? In each analysis, the number of variables is 1. You want to describe age, and you want to describe growing up in the South. I did not ask the question, is there a relationship between age and growing up in the South? I simply wanted to describe each. So the number of variables is 1 in each case. Each is measured at the nominal level. So here is the data. I'm going to have to find the form here. If you'll bear with me for just a moment. Sorry for the delay, but we're now loading in the SPSS software in the okay, this is not looking good. Okay, here we go. This is what the data looks like when it's put into the SPSS. Here you see the variable names are across the top, age, South, research, statistics. These are different individual variables entered into the data. Some of these were combined together to create a new variable that was used in the analysis, such as, for example, stress was a variable that was combined several different items. The same is true of the other things as well. Okay, back to let's look at some of the data from the printout descriptive analysis of nominal variables. When I ask for a descriptive analysis or the frequency for several nominal variables, this is what the printout looked like. You can see here the first one is age, and I just wrote in the question there for your convenience. Are you above the age of 30? 2 said yes, 1 was no. Just occurred to me in my illustration a moment ago said the numbers were 0 and 1. I was incorrect. It's 1 and 2. So we can see that 45 people were above, 23 people were above. 23 above, 30, 45 not. So the proportion or percentage of those above was 33%. Those below was 65. So roughly 1/3 of the persons were above 30. The others were not. This is about childhood in the South. Just an example, the frequency of those who did grow up in the South was 39. which represented 56% of the total. Those who did not was 29 persons, which represented 42% of the sample. These are just a couple of examples of data that are interval in nature. Here's an example of some that is, the previous were nominal and nominal variables. This is an example of a printout of interval variables. Stress was measured. We developed a stress scale that combined several different items from the questionnaire to give you an overall score for stress. So you see the first line says stress. I hope this is big enough to see, but let me make it even bigger. Okay, hope this helps. For stress, this is the number of persons in the study, 68. The lowest stress score that was received was a 7. The highest was a 20. The mean was 12.4. So here you can see a number of different variables, including the support. Also, Outlook. The first one, Outlook pre and Outlook post. This was the pre-test on Outlook on the course. This next one was post-test to see what kind of difference there was. You can see that the score for pre-test was 20.6, for post-test 20.09, meaning it slightly went down. But both of those scores, by the way, are pretty high. So the pre-test was pretty high on Outlook. So students in this course had a pretty positive outlook even when they started, before they even had their very first class here. That's one of the reasons to look at descriptive analysis of data for other purposes. The Outlook had an evaluative purpose. Did the first class improve Outlook between pre-test and post-test? Was a research question that was not descriptive in nature. It was explanatory in nature, or evaluative in nature, actually evaluative. But doing a descriptive analysis of the pre-test score suggested that it was pretty darn high to start with. Not much room for growth. So perhaps I was barking up the wrong tree when I decided to measure course outlook as a way of evaluating how well the first class experience worked. They were already pretty positive, quite positive. So there was not much room for growth there. Okay, I've just done a quick illustration of a couple of things of how you put the data into the computer, do an analysis, and what a printout looks like. So you've seen an illustration that showed a questionnaire used to collect data, the SPSS file where the data were entered, and the printouts of the descriptive analysis of several variables. And I hope this has been helpful to you.